Be familiar with Forum already, but just in case you aren't, we're a profit organisation. We've been working for over 20 years in the field of sustainability. We work on collaborative with business, civil society and governments, solving a number of different complex sustainability challenges. The areas where we focus is on energy change and interventions that can help to decarbonise, democratise the energy system. And in that capacity, we're looking to encourage and scale up community energy for over 5 years now. And that's the background to this project that I'm going to be talking about further today, PowerPaired. I'm also very happy to be joined by Emma Bridge, who's the Chief Executive of Community Energy Inc., who's going to be giving us a little bit of an overview of the current community energy sector. And then I will talk in depth about PowerPaired and how that fits and what we're trying to achieve with the project. I'll also be joined by Jacqueline Cullerton, who's our communication lead for the project, who will be helping me with any questions you may have as we go along. A little admin, you'll see on the left-hand side of your screen, hopefully there's a question and answer box. So if as that's going on, you have any questions, if you could type them into the box and submit them, and then we'll endeavour throughout the session to make sure by the end we've answered those questions. And we'll probably save it for a question and answer session at the end, but you can submit your questions through the webinar. The other thing you'll notice is as the webinar is on, there are going to be a couple of questions that pop up for you to answer, just to give us an idea of your background and interest in joining the webinar today. So hopefully answer those quite easily for us. So overview, there'll be a poll starting with asking you coming up shortly, how many of you are community energy groups or active members of community energy groups, because we'd really like to know for the background to this webinar. So overview the agenda, start with an introduction, which I've done. Then we'll be moving on to the overview of the sector from Emma, then back to me for an overview of PowerPaired, setting out how it works, what it's aiming to achieve, and how you can become involved. And then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So if that's clear, I will hand over now to Emma.
Hi, sorry, I'm just going to share my screen with you now, so you have my slides. Okay, so I'm just going to spend 4 to 5 minutes so that we can focus mainly on PowerPaired, but just to give a brief run through of where community energy is now and some of the future trends. If you want a more in-depth look on any of the stuff that I'll talk about, you can access our latest State of the Sector report on our website, which has more details. So from a survey of community energy groups from across England, Wales and Northern Ireland last year, we found 160 megawatts of electricity generation capacity, generating enough electricity to supply the equivalent of 64,000 homes and just under 2 megawatts of heat generation capacity. Now, this may seem like a small amount, but up until a couple of years ago, community energy was the fastest growing part of both the social and energy sectors. However, over the last couple of years, there have been a number of policy and regulatory changes and challenges which have dramatically slowed the growth of community renewable energy generation, which has been compounded by other challenges such as access to suitable sites. Despite this slowdown in generation, however, there have been a number of recent successes, reasons for optimism about the future. So 2018 saw an increasing trend towards innovation, with 33 organisations involved in energy storage projects, 29 investigating low carbon transport, and we also had a number of groups secure generation assets via the purchase of existing sites, particularly privately owned sites, and also supporting the transfer of wider assets into community ownership. Energy efficiency has also become an increasing focus, with 92 community groups actively working to raise low carbon awareness and improving energy efficiency in their local areas, partly as a way to continue to ensure that local value and impact is added from energy projects. So moving on to the next slide, I thought it was really important to pull out why community energy is important and the benefit for asset owners in working with communities. Community energy places democratic control, shared benefits and active participation at the centre of project delivery. Therefore, the sector can create a foundation for the infrastructure and cultural change needed to reduce the impact of climate change whilst increasing our energy security. Community energy also has the potential to draw people in, not just as consumers, but also as active participants or partners in this process of change. Partners because people share in the benefits, have some say in how things happen, are actively involved and feel a connection with the outcomes. So as you can see from the slide, community energy has a wide range of direct and indirect economic, social and environmental impacts on local communities. In 2018, community energy groups are found to have spent just under £1 million of community benefit funds on a range of projects and issues shown here. There are, of course, a wide range of other economic benefits, such as low-cost generation for local homeowners, asset owners, community buildings and schools, dividend payments to community investors, job creation in the local area, and cost savings via energy efficiency upgrades in the local community. Moving on to some of the barriers that project delivery has faced, you can see here the reasons for 69 projects stalling in 2018. Access to suitable development sites was reported as an ongoing problem for most groups. Constraints related to site identification, as well as the added complexity and time of negotiating agreements and leases, were reported as barriers by 30% of the respondents. So these are key issues that PowerPaired is seeking to address. You can see here as well, looking along the bar chart on the right-hand side, that another key barrier is a lack of supportive partners. This is also something that PowerPaired aims to help with. Partnerships and support at regional and local level are central in stimulating successful community groups, along with a strong understanding by partners of how community energy projects work and their additional value. And whilst 2019 looks set to be another challenging year for community energy, there is still optimism for many in the sector. New opportunities are arising from the energy system transition, offering new possibilities for community-led energy development. You can see here that at the point of when we sent out our survey at the beginning of this year, 72% of community energy groups stated that they plan to continue their energy activities throughout this year. Electricity generation was planned by 88, all hoping to pre-credit and pre-register solar PV before the end of their feed-in tariff in March. And looking at recent data, I actually see a lot more groups coming through delivering projects on the back of that. It was also reported that battery storage, further increase on flexibility services, P2P trading, peer-to-peer. So a real kind of broad mix there of innovation, but with an increasing focus on the actual generation projects. As this webinar aims to address, access to suitable sites will be a huge driver in future project development, as well as enabling sites to access cheaper energy that also has a powerful impact on the local community. So if you are interested in learning more about what's happening across the community sector, please visit our website and the Community Energy Hub. And I'll now hand over back to Becca to continue on about PowerPaired.
Thank you very much, Emma. That's really interesting data. And from the poll that we conducted at the start of the webinar, it looks like over 50% of you are already active members in a community energy group, and that actually 22% of people on the line would like to become involved in a community energy group. So hopefully that shows that there is a kind of vibrant and still growing sector. And I look forward to now sharing with you how PowerPaired can hopefully help that sector to grow. Just bear with me, I'll just switch over into my presentation. Okay, so having heard from Emma, the community energy sector in England and some of the benefits and some of the progress that's being made, she did touch on some of the barriers, which I'm just going to recap so that you can see where PowerPaired fits into the community energy landscape. So as Emma spoke about, there has been quite an adverse policy environment for project development over the last 3 years. And as those of you who are already active in the sector will know, those have included rapid and deep reductions in the feed-in tariffs that have challenged the business model that was existing to support community energy previously. There is a transition period as communities are innovating new business models to reflect that policy climate and experimenting with new ideas around PPAs, solar plus storage, and energy efficiency and other items. But as Emma hinted at and showed in the results to the Community Energy State of the Sector report, there are still significant barriers, leaving aside the policy climate, around this issue of how difficult it is for community energy groups to find viable sites with a willing asset owner attached. And when we did some research prior to starting PowerPaired, we found through our kind of discussions and interviews with community energy groups that sometimes it was taking up to 40 or 50 different approaches to different asset owners for groups to find a viable site. And that was wasting a lot of time and resource, and also causing many groups to kind of give up before they'd even got started. So the idea behind PowerPaired is an intervention that can tackle that difficulty in finding viable sites. The vision of the project is to create a trusted digital platform which can match owners of viable land and buildings with community energy groups who have the ability to deliver renewable energy projects. The idea that we formed this vision from is the fact that Forum for the Future has a large network of corporate partners who we know have assets that are suitable for renewable energy development that they may not have developed themselves. But on the other hand, they also have carbon reduction targets, they have corporate social responsibility agendas and drivers for working and engaging with communities. So we were seeing this kind of asset base on one side, and then we have strong relationships with community energy groups who we knew on the other hand were looking for sites. So the idea behind the platform is to try and encourage asset owners falling into that category I just spoke about to open up and share those assets with community energy groups and create a digital platform that can allow community energy groups to more easily search and find assets, but assets most critically that have got an asset owner attached to them who has already been warmed up to the idea of community energy and the potential benefits of partnering on a project. So that's the vision. So we hope ultimately that we'll have from care homes to churches, housing to hospitals, farms to factories, a growing number of asset owners partnering with local groups to catalyse the next wave of community energy projects. What we've done so far is, with very kind support from the Friends Provident Foundation, the Greater London Authority, and now the players of the People's Postcode Lottery, was to carry out a feasibility study in phase 1, which really took this idea, went out and tested it with both asset owners and community energy groups to see on the asset owner side whether there would be demand for working with community energy groups, to understand some of the barriers of making information on their sites available, and then on the other hand to understand for community energy groups if this platform was to be effective, the type of information they would need on sites, the type of approach they could make to an asset owner, and how we could design the platform to kind of meet the needs of both of those groups of people. We also worked in that initial feasibility stage on developing some wireframes with a digital agency that sort of sketched out how that platform might look and might work, reflecting the information that we got back from both of those groups. And just a summary of some of the responses from the asset owners we got during phase 1 feasibility, which was overwhelmingly positive. We engaged private sector, public sector, and quasi institutions in between, like housing associations, all of whom could see the benefits to working with community energy groups and having a platform that could allow them to do that more easily. Last year, we moved forwards to piloting the platform, building it out from those initial wireframes so that it became a fully functional platform that people could use and test. We worked with pilot partners, the Greater London Authority, Suffolk County Council and Oldham County Council to anchor activity in Manchester, London and Suffolk throughout 2018 and early 2019. As part of that, we recruited 33 community groups to test the platform. We got 15 different types of asset owners who between them uploaded over 100 assets during the pilot phase. Some of those assets were as varied as National Grid coming in with a large portfolio of land around their substations. Councils such as Suffolk and Oldham shared assets such as fire stations, libraries, schools, other municipal buildings. And then we've got a number of smaller asset owners such as individual churches. We've got housing associations who have land associated with their care homes or buildings associated with their care homes. There's quite a nice spread of different assets. And we're now, having done that pilot phase, seen that the platform can function, which I'll just give you a little bit of a look at here. Seen that we can attract asset owners and that we can populate it with assets. The next stage is now to learn from the pilot stage in terms of some improvements that we can make to the platform, and to take it out and now roll it out nationally so that we can recruit a wider base of asset owners and community energy groups and really try and scale up the impact that the platform can have. I'm going to share with you in a little bit in more detail how you would use the platform as a community energy group. But this is just the screenshots to give you an idea of what the platform looks like if you were to go in and search for assets. So here is a kind of more detailed screen. We've deliberately tried to keep the platform as simple as possible so that it's easy and straightforward to use. And also the information and feedback we got from community energy groups was that actually in order to assess whether a site was viable, they didn't need large amounts of technical data. They just needed some quite basic information from the asset owner in the first instance around the location, the size, the potential technology it could host, and if possible, information on energy consumption. So this is one of our assets that we've got in from the National Grid, just to give you an idea of what it looks once the information's up there. If we have asset owners on the line, I just wanted to share for asset owners the benefits of becoming involved with PowerPaired and potentially working with a community energy group. So there's no financial or legal commitment required as an asset owner to sign up for the platform. It's free to use. Asset owners are not bound by putting an asset on the platform that they definitely have to take it forward into a project. It's really just putting it up there to see which potential community energy groups might be interested in the asset and to take discussions forward from there. So it's just about having a willingness to explore whether those assets might be potential for a community energy project. As I suggested before, there's only basic data required on assets. So we're not asking asset owners to come with full feasibility studies or anything like that. We just want to get as many assets as we possibly can so that we can start to build up a picture of where the opportunities lie. And then community energy groups, if they're interested, could then work with the asset owner to produce more detailed feasibility data. Forum is able to provide support and training on the platform for asset owners and to guide them through uploading their assets. As I said, there's no commitment to take a project forward if they don't want to in terms of taking forward an expression of interest made by a community energy group. And the benefits are that an asset owner will be helping to support the growth of the community energy sector. Community energy projects, as Emma has discussed, can help asset owners to meet their objectives around carbon reduction without actually having to make capital investment themselves. There is the potential to access cheaper, greener sources of power through the projects that you're hosting, and also to become a pioneer of innovative new community energy solutions. On the other side, for the community energy groups that we have listening, again, there's no financial or legal commitment at all required. The platform is free to use for you. To register, you only need basic information, which I will track you through in the next few slides. Forum can provide support and training on the platform for you. And through using the platform, you will have access to a searchable database of assets with interested site owners, which is the key benefit of the platform. And as I've hinted at before, we've got a diverse range of different assets in there already, including churches, schools, fire stations, substation land, offices and more. And over the next year, we will be working with more asset owners to bring in more assets to the platform and build up more national opportunities outside of those initial pilot areas. The hope is that through doing this, that Forum can reduce the time and effort it's taking groups to initiate a project, because somebody else has already done that difficult work of finding the site and having the conversations with the asset owner and bringing them to the site. And it can help to broker new relationships between community energy groups and asset owners and corporate partners, supporting the growth of the sector. So those are some of the benefits and why we think it's a good idea. If you're a community energy group, I just wanted to walk you through now how you could use the platform and how simple it is to register. So this is the landing page that I'm sharing with you now. The web address for it I've put there is www.powerpaired.org. Once you come to this landing screen, all you need to do, if you're not already registered with the site, is to click Need an Account. Then you select what type of organisation you belong to. So if you're a community energy group, it's the one on the right. And then it first of all requires some personal information about a contact person from the organisation. So your nominated kind of lead contact. Again, that's very simple. It's just your name, email, and a password for your account. And then also to populate information and a profile for your organisation. So that's your community energy group, giving details of your address and a link through to your website so that asset owners have the possibility to search and find out more information about you. Forum for the Future, this information then gets submitted to Forum for the Future, and we can verify that you are a bona fide community energy group, make sure that there aren't commercial organisations coming in to take a look at these assets. It's intended to be a platform just for community energy groups to use at this stage. And then once you're registered and Forum have approved you, if you wanted to go in, this is the kind of screen you'd see in terms of searching for assets. You can do it by a postcode search. You click the Find Assets and then it brings up the screen. So, for example, one like this, one of our assets in Oldham, the Northmoor Academy. And then you have the opportunity in that button on the right-hand side to click Express Interest. And that will put you in direct contact with the relevant person at the asset owner to make clear that you are interested in the asset and would like to have a further discussion about it. So as you can see, it's very simple to use as a platform, and we hope as many of you as possible who are on the line today will go ahead and register. Even if there aren't any relevant assets at the moment, once you're registered, it will be being further populated with assets. So it may be that some come online in the next few months. Our plan for 2019-2020, as we shared, is to further and design and develop the platform. So in the kind of pilot phase, the focus is very much on getting the searchable database element of the site up and running. What we've learned through the pilot phase is that it would be useful to integrate into the platform more information about community energy so that asset owners have a better understanding of what it is and how it works, were they to put their assets up on the platform, and how a project might progress. And we're going to be using that kind of opportunity to upgrade the platform, so integrating things like news features so that we can be sharing information about how the project's progressing, about new assets and asset owners that are coming into the project, about projects that hopefully come forward from the platform, as well as that additional information about supporting resources that can help make it easier for asset owners and community energy groups to take projects forward. We will be doing targeted recruitment of additional assets, drawing both on our strong partner base from Forum, but also with other sectors and organisations that we have identified through some stakeholder mapping as being potentially good sources of assets. We'll be creating communication materials and a campaign to support that asset owner recruitment, so doing press releases, articles, blogs, speaking at events, communicating through social media to support that activity. And then we're also looking at building strategic partnerships with other organisations who, once we've got assets on the platform and expressions of interest, can help support both asset owners and community energy groups to take those matches forward into becoming projects, and also to identify where, for example, we've got assets in, what models might work nicely for developing those assets in the current climate. So that's going to be our focus in 2019-20. And those are our contact details if you have any further questions. So I'm going to open it up to questions now. I know that we've got some that have already been submitted. One of which is, who is having the initial conversations with the asset owner? And that's from Simon Petenberg. Thank you, Simon, for submitting that question. In terms of the initial conversation with the asset owner to recruit them onto the platform, those conversations are being led by the team at Forum for the Future. We're doing the outreach. We've had a number of different meetings over the course of the pilot with asset owners. Many of those conversations are continuing, so even though they may not have assets on the platform at the moment, we've got some very warm leads where we're working with them to understand how the platform works, what assets they have that may be suitable, and to train them and support them through bringing assets onto the platform. The intention is, once we've brought the asset owner to the platform, it's then for the community energy group to make the expression of interest and take the discussion forwards. But we can also provide some support around that. Should there be questions around what you need to include in your expression of interest, and to kind of support that conversation so that it becomes fruitful. I'm going to do a quick poll now before I go to other questions, because we're interested to understand how many people who are on the line are currently working on a community energy project, or anybody who is actively looking for a site so that they can start a project. I'm just going to allow you to answer that and then share the results with you shortly. It's a bit like Eurovision, we're just counting your votes. Great, so it looks like 60% of you are already actively working on projects. A smaller percentage, 4%, are actively looking for a site so you can start a project, and 38% of you are not currently working on projects at this time. So it's good to see that there's still active projects going on in the community energy sector. Hopefully this platform can support more coming forward. Another question that's been asked, again, Simon, thank you for your questions, is, do you think the platform will be expanded to offer other services to community energy groups? So consultants offering development services, legal firms specialising in community energy projects. Yes, I think the anticipation is that the platform will seek to build in that further support because of the insight that we've gathered from the pilot phase about the kind of level of visibility of how community energy projects work and the support that might be needed in order for asset owners to take projects forward, and also to support community energy groups in doing so. So the ultimate aim of the platform might be, for example, that it becomes a kind of little bit of a one-step shop so that people can come, find an asset, and then also access that kind of further support around feasibility, through legal, through finance. Some of that might happen in the shorter term, some is more medium, longer term ambition. But that through the strategic partnerships that I spoke about, that's one of the things that we're looking at, how we can integrate that support that already exists in the ecosystem into the platform and kind of signpost it more strongly to groups. Another question that's been asked is, how can community energy groups help PowerPaired? I guess there are a number of different things. So firstly would be to register with the platform, because it helps us enormously if we can show to asset owners that we have this large database of community energy groups who are actively looking for projects, so we can kind of prove demand to them that there are groups out there and who would be interested in their assets. You can help us to spread the word. It would be fantastic if, for example, through your social media, when we're doing social media communications, if you're able to do things like retweeting or do like tweets around this, or if you're speaking at events, if you can integrate PowerPaired into presentations, just help us get the word out as widely as possible. Or if you have an asset owner, for example, who you think it would be great if they could bring their assets to the platform so that we can build up this map of where those assets are in the UK. Another question that we've been asked is how we check the liability and trust issues on both parts. This is a good question because we know that community energy groups have had bad experience in the past of having their fingers burnt working with asset owners, getting projects almost to completion, and then an asset owner deciding to do it themselves. We can't force an asset owner to take a project through in the same way that once you've kind of started the discussions with the asset owner, it's between the community energy group and the asset owner, and Forum for the Future is not kind of involved in that part of the relationship. But our expectation is that community energy and asset owners wanting to work with community energy groups will do so in good faith to the best of their ability. But at the same time, we are saying to asset owners, because this is the case, and I think it's an important part of them wanting to commit to the platform or not, that it's not a legally binding commitment for them to put an asset on. So if they change their mind, they can take it back off the platform, and they're not bound by responding to an expression of interest to take a project forward. PowerPaired is really trying to initiate those initial discussions and create greater transparency about where asset owners are that are interested in working with community energy groups. Somebody has asked a question, Catriona Knott, thank you Catriona, about what the extent of our work is in Scotland. That's actually very timely because we have been having some conversations with supporting organisations in Scotland today. It's too early to say who with, but looking at basically what the most effective way to roll the platform out in Scotland is, and to look at which sectors and asset owners we could target in Scotland and who we could potentially partner with in Scotland to provide support to asset owners and community energy groups for projects to come forward from the platform. And it's worth saying that we would also like to explore those different relationships in Wales, for example, so that we have kind of spread across the United Kingdom and also Northern Ireland to the extent possible. Another question that we've been asked is there any requirement that the asset owner ensure a project be viable in terms of planning? Can they only offer sites where they feel confident in planning approval? Thank you, Betsy, for that question. No, the answer is in short. So what we've tried to focus on, and this was one of the things that came from the feasibility, was getting volume of assets at this stage. So it might be that not all of the assets on there at the current time are viable for projects. But what we're trying to do is build up as big a list of assets and opportunities as possible, so that it might be that something that's not viable now, for example, because of financial or planning constraints, might become viable in the future. So we're trying not to place too many constraints around the type of assets that are uploaded for now, and also because community energy groups told us that they're quite good at sifting whether something is or isn't a good asset or not. And so instead of putting that burden on the asset owner, which might prevent them uploading assets and becoming involved in the project if they feel that it's burdensome and requires time and resource on their part, we're just focusing on getting the assets on, and then community energy groups kind of guiding through the process whether the asset is viable or not. Saying that, obviously we are trying, from the information that we're being fed back from community energy groups, where we can, to target a certain type of asset based on what business models are currently working. So we know, for example, that large roofs with a high on-site energy demand would be attractive, and a roof that's in good condition and kind of facing the right way. So where we can, we are trying to filter a little bit so that we get those plum opportunities where we can. And also a question that Jackie has asked is, do you envisage that there will be a geographical preference for asset owners to work with groups in their locality? I think that Potentially, depending upon the type of asset owner, there might be. So, for example, we have a couple of churches that are on the platform at the moment. And I think the preference for those kinds of asset owners would be to work with a local group that was kind of local to their community, so that they could really see the local benefit and bring, for example, their congregations into the project a bit more. But there are other asset owners who I don't think have necessarily a strong local preference. So it might be that other models exist, like, for example, I don't know, an Energy for All, who is a national organisation, might take it forward, but then do fundraising at a local level. Or it might be that a community energy group in a neighbouring region took the asset forward, but opened up a share offer that local people could invest in. I don't think there's necessarily, there are no hard and fast rules. It would be up to the particular asset owner and up to the group, I guess, if they wanted to take on an asset out of their geographical region. And Emma, thank you for raising the question, what steps are being made to prevent a bidding war between communities wanting to develop a project on an asset? Again, the platform is a kind of open expression of interest. It's not bound to, once one group has made an expression of interest, it shuts the asset down from other people making an expression of interest. The idea behind the platform would be that asset owners are in control. So if they wanted to take expressions of interest from multiple different groups and then assess which opportunity they like the best, that would be open to the asset owner. Obviously, we would work with the asset owner, hopefully, to prevent a situation where community energy groups were investing time and resource in taking a project forward, whilst another community energy group was also investing time and resource. But I think in that initial stage, it is the idea behind the platform is that as many expressions of interest as possible could be made, and then the asset owner has the choice around who they would like to work with. And another question that Emma asked, which is very relevant, is, are all renewable technologies applicable for use through PowerPaired? And the answer is yes. We're not prescribing or limiting the platform to any particular type of technology. It has been the case, and perhaps this is just reflective of the current policy landscape, that most of the opportunities that are in there at the moment are solar, but it can be wind, it could be hydro, it could be energy efficiency. And actually one of the things that we're looking at as the next iteration of the platform and to build in is how we integrate other opportunities like demand side response that is becoming like community energy groups working in flexibility markets, because we know that that's an area that's expanding and opening up to community energy groups. And it might be that there's possibilities to offer those opportunities through the platform as well. Other things that we might look at are how we offer, for example, shared ownership opportunities where, for example, in Scotland, we know that there are still wind farms being built where developers are looking for community energy groups to take stakes, so that we offer those kind of opportunities through the platform. And then one final question from Emma is, what safety net is in place if there is already a community energy group in the area that is not registered on PowerPaired, but a discussion is taking place between an asset owner and a not local community energy group? I'm just thinking about that question for a moment. I guess what we have been trying to do is, and what we are going to be doing more of, is where we have an asset is reaching out to local groups to register with the platform so that they can look at the assets that are in their geographical area. So where possible, we're trying to find groups local to the asset so that they know that it's there if they're looking for projects and have the opportunity to make an expression of interest. I hope that answers your question adequately, Emma. I've got a couple more questions that I'm just trying to answer, which one from Damien at Brighton Energy, which is, have you investigated any investment or funding solutions for the funding of new PV arrays? Damien, as I have explained in the presentation, I guess that at this moment in time, PowerPaired as a platform is not about financing community energy projects. So the answer to that question is no. We would be looking at community energy groups with models, but we are working with strategic partners who might be investigating those kind of new funding solutions and models for projects coming out of the platform. So we won't be doing it directly ourselves, but we may be working with strategic partners who can come up with those different models. A question here is, will groups be alerted to local asset owners as they join? That is one of the functionalities that we are looking to build into the platform in the next stage of development, so that there would be a notification as the assets are joined. In the shorter term, what we're looking to do is use our social media platforms. So if you're following PowerPaired on Twitter, we will be alerting people as new assets come onto the platform. So to monitor that, and I guess the kind of more manual way is just to be checking back in on the platform if you're registered and searching by postcode to see if anything new has come up. But yes, that is something that we're looking to build in. And a final question that we've got is, okay, and does PowerPaired work with those in just England or across the UK? Thank you, Betsy. So in the pilot phase, it was just in England, but now that we're rolling it out, we're looking to recruit asset owners across the UK and to recruit community energy groups across the UK. So absolutely, if you're not based in England, it is no barrier whatsoever to using PowerPaired. So I'm just going to thank you for all of those questions and being so involved. They're very interesting, and it's great to get feedback on the platform. Before we go, I just wanted to ask one final poll, which would be to rate the webinar between 1 and 5 stars, just so that we know if there's anything that we can do better and if it has kind of met your needs. And if you have any specific questions or queries that weren't answered through the webinar, please feel free to email me on the email address that is on that slide now. And I hope that that has been an interesting session. Thank you to everybody for joining us, and I hope you go away and hopefully register with the platform. Thank you.